Hey, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to Banner and Backbone's Anti-Fascist Book Club. I'm Nick Perro. I am joined by my good friends and colleagues, Tara Devlin of Tara Buster. Hey, Tara, how are you?
Hey guys.
And Stephanie Wilson from Freedom Over Fascism.
Hey, y'all.
And Chris Goldsmith from On Offense, as well as Task Force Butler and Veterans Fighting Fascism, which is really important because they are the ones who design. Chris design the Anti-Fascist Book Club. So welcome, Chris. It's great to have you again, my friend.
Thanks. Good to see you guys.
And like I said, I'm Nick Perro, co-founder here at Banner and Backbone, and we are back for our third episode on Ruth Ben-Ghiat's book, Strongmen, Mussolini to the Present. I'll show it here so everybody can see. We highly recommend everybody get a copy. Get a copy from either your local library or buy a copy yourself on a used or thrift or non-standard bookstore that is not, say, Amazon or one of the other big companies. We definitely advocate for using smaller book outlets that actually go back to the community. Before we get into this today, Chris, do you mind giving an overview again for everyone? It's been a couple weeks, I know, but when these release and we do our longer casts, it won't be like that. But for everybody, Chris, do you mind giving an overview of what the Anti-Fascist Book Club is and why we do this type of thing?
Yeah, so the Anti-Fascist Book Club kind of started as an accident. After last November's elections, or 2 Novembers ago now, folks were coming to me to ask, because I study extremism and fascism, what could they do to prepare themselves for the coming Trump administration? So I came up with a list of 5 essentials at first. And the idea was to help people understand the history of fascism and the history of anti-fascism so that you can engage in fighting back, in learning from the past, organizing for the present threat. And what the Anti-Fascist Book Club is there's a guide on veteransfightingfascism.org. It's an excuse to actually organize with people in your community, whether that's online or in person. And I want to emphasize in person, super important, because fascism grows in your backyard, not just in Washington, D.C. So if you don't know how to get organized, the Anti-Fascist Book Club guides give you everything that you need for the first 6 meetings, where you'll consume a couple of different reading assignments. It'll guide you through like questions and answers and ways to kind of build community and build trust. After those 6 meetings, you don't need a guide anymore. You'll know what to do. And when you start getting to know people in your neighborhood who share common pro-democracy values with you, you can start getting engaged in democracy at the local level, which is where you can have the greatest impact.
That's great. How do you start a club, though, in your neighborhood? This is when you were talking, I was thinking about how do you find other people to join? Yeah.
I'm not a boomer, but I have stayed on Facebook.
Okay.
Despite the shittiness of that website. And, like everywhere in America has like a community group of some kind, whether it's an indivisible page or, #resist page or whatever, corny shit that it might be. It's people in your town, people in your neighborhood, your community who want to do things, but very often have a lot of difficulty going from, clicking and sharing things online to actually doing stuff in person. So just simply picking a time, a date, and a location, saying, I'm going to be at the public library, for the first next that is all you need to do to see who wants to step forward. And if it means you sit in a library alone, for an hour once a week for 3 weeks, like that's a good use of 3 hours. If you have to wait a few weeks for somebody to finally show up and for word to spread from person to person, it's well worth it.
But I think if you go to the library and you get a place in the library and you tell the librarians, And even if you go there, you could recruit people who are at the library at that moment to join.
Right.
That's a great idea.
Oh yeah, I mean, and every librarian that I've ever talked to about this just absolutely loves it. Some librarians have started their own clubs for their communities. I think that people don't frequent the library very often, and I am one of them.
Right.
Haven't been to a library since I left school 5 years ago. People forget that librarians are professionals. They are there to not be community organizers, but to facilitate community organizing in education. So if you tell a librarian, hey, I've got this guide online, I'd like to help you, I'd like for your help making this a reality, 9 times out of 10, that librarian is going to be very excited to talk to you about it.
Definitely.
When I was in school, we always were told that librarians are the gatekeepers or the guardians of knowledge, sort of like those old owls in like fantasy books that come and peck your brain out if you try and ruin things in their libraries and vast swaths of knowledge. They're like dragons of knowledge, but in a good way. And so librarians are awesome. Go visit your library. I need to do that more in my own community too. I think we all do. And it's not just for the reading. Like there's more at libraries than books these days. There are videos, there are audiobooks, there are games, there are like board games and computer games and like video game console games. There are internet stations and booths. It's like a little cafe.
It is.
A lot of them even have cafes in them.
Right. Yeah.
We, my other business where the leadership development training, we are about to start a training for a group of librarians that work in small liberal arts colleges all across the country. And those people care. They care so much about the people that they work with and who are around them, and they know so much. And I think they're a vastly underutilized resource.
I think what I'm going to do, I'll reach out to them after the show, is I'm going to invite your weirdo friend on for a book club. They are, or they were a gender studies professor out of they were a gender studies professor and they are now out of the US. They were forced out of the US because they're a trans individual and they're afraid for, and they have been targeted by Christian nationalists, and is now on this platform doing almost like a Reading Rainbow style bookathon where they're just reading and discussing books similar to what we're doing here. And they just did a 6-part series, they called it like the people's, I think it was whatever they do on the Senate floor when they monologue forever. Filibuster. And I think Weirdo would be a great addition to the conversations around here too. And that type of thing is what we've been talking about here, is like virtual book clubs are a great way for people who have been targeted in minority communities to get together, or who are afraid to be in person or can't be in person because they have been pushed out of the country or fear for location or things like that. Like we see this week that white women are not safe anymore. They haven't been, but white women are not safe in this country because Renee Nicole Good was shot this week in a murdered. I'm going to say this, and I really do want everyone's opinion because this fits in really well with what's going on. So we're reading Strongmen by Ruth Ben-Ghiat. We are currently on chapter 3, which is hold on, let me get the chapter title. New Authoritarian Ascents, and we're living through one right now. Like what we're doing is we're living through Trump's and the Trump regime and the Project 2025 regime's authoritarian ascent. It's the KKK platform, in my opinion. It's the new Confederacy platform. And that's what I see it as. So this is the Anti-Fascist Book Club, and they are fascists. The regime that we're fighting against is a white supremacist fascist regime. Both are very important in my mind. And they're slightly different, but they're both very important. They're also a Christian nationalist regime, too. They've got 3 very distinct categories in my mind. But I think what happened in Minneapolis on Wednesday was both an atrocity, just in general. Like, it's not the first time we've seen a woman get shot in her car by ICE, by an ICE agent. Like, one happened a couple months ago, and she was shot like 7 times and is lucky to be alive. Renee Nicole Good was not so fortunate. Her partner, who was in the vehicle with her, allegedly, from what I've been hearing, is reports that she was in the vehicle with her, is lucky to be alive.
Yes,
sounds like, because that gentleman, who has been not identified by DHS, because from what I've researched is they won't identify an ICE official.
He's been identified, though. He's been
identified in non-official sources, but from what I know is DHS by policy will not release a agent's name unless they're required to by court order. So I want to get facts and truth out so that people aren't going, why isn't his name being released by the...
Well, it's on the Huffington Post now, so I'm imagining
the Guardian reported it. Star
Yeah.
Tribune reported it. I don't know how credible Star Tribune is.
Guardian's pretty credible, though.
I would think they did the due diligence on it. They have his whole history. He was in Iraq.
Jonathan Ross murdered, in my opinion.
Yeah, he murdered her in cold blood. That's what we witnessed.
Renee Nicole Good in cold blood, shot her through the window 3 times, and her partner is lucky
for no reason.
I actually think there is a reason.
There is a reason, and it's a manufactured reason. And I think they came in.
I think that they did it
to cause inciting violence. Like, they wanted to escalate this into a situation where they would get martial law.
Yes.
They went into Venezuela, and that didn't do what they needed it to do. It did not rally America around, oh, Maduro's captured, this is awesome. We can't. All of us came out and we were like, no, this is fucking stupid. And then they shot a woman, and the first thing they said was domestic terrorist, and everybody. And then they came out with a doctored video. Zev Shalem and I did a really in-depth analysis of this video that looks doctored from Rumble. They pulled it off Rumble.
Yeah,
and
what they do.
It looks like there's almost like a second set of legs that move and it's a shadow effect, that they make it so it seems like the ICE officer is about to get run over.
Unbelievable.
But if you look at all the video, that's crystal clear in high definition right next to the fucking ICE officer. He's clearly in position with his gun drawn, puts his hand on the vehicle, points it at the window, and pulls the trigger. Like, he was in a position to fire. He knew what he was doing. He was ready to shoot.
The New York Times visual investigation team did a very, very good breakdown of all of the available videos, including the ones that the White House's and Fox News and the entire right-wing information ecosystem are leaning on. And when you watch them so that they're time synced, it is very clear that this ICE agent was in no danger of getting run over. Also, important to note that ICE agents are not allowed to shoot to stop vehicles, and they are told not to approach vehicles from the front, which is what this agent did.
He put himself in that position, but they're not trained. These people are not trained. They don't go through. It's not like going through.
This guy was a firearms instructor.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. He had a long
well
history in the military and in law enforcement. That is true.
Yeah, he's been a 10 years officer in DHS or in federal service. Like, this man knew what he was doing. It's also that reported that he was the officer who was involved in the being dragged by a vehicle.
Right. As if like so, but that's why.
So he probably has PTSD.
Yeah, but so take him off the line. You know,
he never went to get therapy.
That doesn't serve their purpose.
Right.
No, I know. They need him broken for their purpose.
Well, they're breaking
because
the
then
whole
he
country.
will do an
This
escalatory act.
we're all suffering. I don't know about you, but it's absolutely traumatic watching that woman get murdered in front of us, and then watching and listening to this maladministration make excuses for it and attack the half the country. Basically, everybody's a loony left. We're all radicalized, for democracy. This is a gaslighting, just nonstop gaslighting, and it's the inhumanity of what we're witnessing that is so absolutely repugnant and damaging. So I don't know. I'm like I was talking to somebody yesterday. I'm like, this country is not going to make it. I don't know what you guys think, but the Roman Republic at least lasted 500 years. We're 250
well,
in.
it continued, but I would like to suggest that it was opposite, not that this happened and that the regime then formulated a response, but they had a response ready within moments. And so they were waiting for some precipitating action, whether it was going to be in Minneapolis or Portland.
Yeah, something was going to kick off
It was
somewhere.
the same story they gave in Portland. They shot 2 more people yesterday.
Right.
And I can find no information on why, how, nobody was videoing it. And I guess the only 2 eyewitnesses are the people who have been shot, and the same exact story, the same talking points were used. And so I think the regime isn't reacting. The regime is instigating, as you said, Nick, to do martial law, to get more troops on the streets, to scare. Like, once they moved from immigrants and people of color to white suburban women, I think it's a whole new level of evil, really.
Yeah. And their hope, the one shining light is that the people are coming out regardless. They're not, they killed that woman. They murdered her in cold blood. And that night, the citizens of that city came out in protest, regardless of the safety, because they're putting their lives at risk now. Everyone who encounters an ICE agent is putting their lives at risk, and people are still doing it, to their credit. So I think that's encouraging, in the least.
And I think we're seeing the parallel in terms of like media spheres to that Ruth Ben-Ghiat points out in the 3rd chapter here, where she's talking about the rise of
Berlusconi.
Yeah, Berlusconi, and the use of private media rather than national media or nationalized media to drive a non-fact-based but personality-based content stream nonstop. And that's what we see in the States. Is we have Twitter, we have X, or whatever it is, we have Facebook and Meta and all of that. We have Larry Ellison buying up all of the cable distribution and management systems and broadcast networks. And so we're seeing this same far right ownership of media that Berlusconi used to get into power in Italy. And I think Trump is using, or the Trump team, the regime around, is using this as their playbook. They have learned from the past.
Yes.
And conveniently, they published it in all of its glory. Project 2025 was clearly the blueprint for what they were planning on doing.
On the topic of the administration and of ICE going from targeting people of color, immigrants, to white women, there's a friend of mine, another creator on TikTok and Instagram, named Abiola. Nick, I just DM'd you the link. She did a great video talking about the history of the way that racist forces view white people who are standing up for equality and justice. And our country has a long history of the KKK, of government forces murdering white people for whether it was during the age of slavery or during the civil rights movement or the entire Jim Crow era. People like J.D. Vance and everyone working for ICE look at white people who are willing to put their lives on the line as no different from the individuals that they truly want to target out of racist hate. We become them in their eyes.
Right.
I'll post this link to this article because I don't have a Facebook account for Banner and Backbone, so it won't let me access it. But I'll post a link for it here in the chat for everyone too. And I'll drop the link into the post show notes so everybody can watch this video. I know, Chris, you posted it, I think, on Substack here not too long ago, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I think this is really important into, like, you're not safe. Like, fascism comes for all of us. Fascism doesn't care. White supremacy is a system of one. Like, it's a system structured on one person and one individual, and having to listen to that whole hierarchical power structure of patriarchy going from single sky daddy all the way down to inherent powers. And that's where we're at right now, is they're using these media spheres to function around a dying leader. And whether he dies soon or dies later, he's a dying leader who is being surrounded by people who are enacting the policies that they want because he will not say no to them.
Well, he wants, I mean, he enjoys it.
Yeah.
He said yesterday the only thing that's stopping him is his own morality.
Which he has none, of course.
Yeah, he doesn't have a morality.
Jesus Christ. This is a guy that sold multi-level marketing, vitamins, complete scam, pee in a cup, and I'll give you these non-FDA approved, magic beans. I mean, this is what we're dealing with, a lifelong grifter, and they hate democracy. They hate America. They are trying to overthrow the system. The founders, birthed from the liberal age of enlightenment. That's what's standing in their way. And I think, someone on the chats, how do we take the teeth out of their manipulation? The problem is that we have silos of information. People are not going to the same sources of news now. So you're getting those who are watching Fox News are getting a completely different story about what's going on. They're not seeing the video; they're seeing the manipulated video. They're listening to this anger from J.D. Vance scolding, the radical left. And they're justifying it, of course. And, these are the don't tread on me assholes too, right? The don't tread on me, government, big government, right? I mean, everything is, of course, they're just full of, crap, of course. But nothing says don't tread on me that like a masked federal officer shooting you in a friggin' car, when your wheels are turned away. I mean, it's just, how is this even allowed to continue? But I honestly, I don't know if we're gonna talk me off the ledge here, because I don't think this country's gonna last with two silos of information. And I'm tired of being dragged into Project 2025. Nobody voted for that. Not even the maggots voted for it. He ran away from that. Like, Rachel Maddow says, imagine if they campaigned on the things they actually do when they're in office. They never do that. They campaign on healthcare for all. It's going to be the easiest deal. It's they campaign on progressive values that people want, and they govern like authoritarians. So that make everything worse.
And through immunity.
Yeah, absolute immunity. That's not even a thing.
No,
we don't have that. That doesn't exist in America. So I don't know. Talk me off the ledge here, because I feel like just saying, look,
so
it's like being in a bad relationship. Good
You're
night.
right.
Have a nice life, maggots. You can have your authoritarian cosplay. We want democracy. So let's just split it up. Let's split it up. You can take the couch. JD Vance wants that. So, we'll
So
have
Tara,
the
you
cat.
are right that there is no legal absolute immunity. There's no law that gives federal agents absolute immunity, which is the phrase that JD Vance used. However, the Supreme Court decision that granted immunity for the president for
Right.
any actions that he is doing, it expands beyond the president. It expands to anyone who's acting under orders of the president. That is the way that the Supreme Court wrote the decision. So in the minds of Stephen Miller, of J.D. Vance, of Donald Trump, of Secretary Noem, absolute immunity does exist. And because in their minds it exists, and because in the mind of Pam Bondi, who's running the DOJ, that this absolute immunity exists, it effectively does. There is, I think, not likely to be a federal prosecution of this.
And he'll pardon him anyway if it comes down to it. So
and the power of the pardon is incredibly broad, and the president of the United States could issue a pardon to all of ICE, and make it so that they can't be prosecuted in the future. And you're right. I have no doubt that he will.
That's what he will do.
Whenever this regime leaves office, that they will grant blanket pardons to all of their co-conspirators. And we as a country are going to have to wrestle with what the Constitution says. And the Constitution gives basic what the courts have interpreted as unfettered power when it comes to protecting criminals who the president might be in league with.
I think it's time we amended the Constitution to remove that protection.
Absolutely.
And with a retroactive clause, because I don't think we should be protecting criminals like this. There's a difference between like pardoning somebody who has been wrongfully prosecuted and put into jail for life because they were, say, Black and just happened to be somewhere near a murder.
There was some
of a
grave
white person,
injustice.
and it was in the 80s or 90s or even 2000s or even 2022 on a video I just saw of some police officers in, I think it's Crawford County, Arkansas, beating the shit out of someone who is on the ground, just pounding his head. And I think shit like that, that's white supremacy. That's built in. That's what this system is. And I'm on the opposite side though, Tara, we are like, I can't give up on these people because they're my countrymen too.
There's good people in red states, of course, but
no,
are you talking about the people who voted, like the triple Trumpers?
Yeah, it's even them. It's even them. I cannot give up on them. Not because it's not an idealistic thing for me in that. I can't give up on them because my goal is to find a path to connect bridges. Like I do that. That is what drives me. Is my passion is to connect and build bridges and find a solution where we can take their hate and manifest it in a different way and show them a different path. Like I'm doing the masculinity series specifically around that because men don't have good role models and influences, and if we can change their views, even if you were a Nazi before, if we can break that away and decultify and unindoctrinate you, I'll welcome you back.
That's wonderful. Yeah, if that's even possible.
I've broken through into my family, into multiple people in my family, and I have people who listen from my family who used to fly MAGA flags in their yards and wear the hats. And I say used to because they threw all that shit away. They were triple Trumpers and they threw all that shit away. And now my family, who I don't even know, after them are passing it on to other family members. Episodes that I do, podcasts and shows that I do, and so I can't give up on
No,
them,
that's
because my
good.
whole thing is like we have to have a truth and reconciliation,
I
and
agree
there is a
with that a zillion
reconciliation
percent. Yeah,
part where accountability needs to be had, and I think we need to. That's where I'm talking
but
earlier, was like we need to change the pardon so it can be retroactively undone from a criminal.
well,
Like,
the
you
pardon,
should
the
not,
whole
a criminal should not,
yeah,
a treasonous president should not be allowed to
that's right.
pardon other individuals. That's
But
my thought.
that's the whole thing. I mean, this is that one kingly power that was granted to the president. I don't think the founders really understood how. Maybe I don't know how
I think
corrupt.
the founders understood far more than we think they did.
Yeah, but I mean, why would they even give a president that kingly power? And of course, Trump, he hasn't ever had a power that he hasn't abused, and that goes triple for the entire enabling Republican Party. Really, so. I don't know. He's one part of the thing with the pardon is they're supposed to have contrition. The people who are pardoned were supposed to, have served some kind of or learned a lesson somehow. This is not the standard anymore. It's just if you are in league with your fellow criminal, out of control, lawless so-called president, convicted felon, the first convicted felon to squat in the White House. So yeah, I mean, and as far I understand that's I do the same thing with my show. We all do. We want to reach people, cut through the noise, and I don't. I'm all about turnabout. As somebody who's in recovery, I know that you can change.
Mhm.
But it takes work. It takes the desire to change, and you also have to confront some maybe uncomfortable truths about yourself and maybe the beliefs that you once held. I don't think without that, we don't have a hope in this country if we are continuing to have silos of information where the
Oh,
truth
yeah.
is, uh, you know,
We
the
have to
truth
fix
is
information
devalued.
terms.
They have completely devalued truth. There's no trust. There's no unity. That's for sure. They have been, but it's not just Trump because Bush, back in the day, he's running on real America. This is real America. Massachusetts liberals, California, like they're always dividing us. You don't see Democrats doing that, and all their flaws, of course. But and I was watching, when JD Vance was giving his lecture, his disgusting lecture, his anger, and why we need to show some of that anger because it's righteous anger, and they have they're on the wrong side of everything and they know it. They're not stupid. JD Vance is not stupid. He's cunning. He is a cunning little evil troll like Peter Thiel. So he knows what he's doing when he goes out there and he lies about, and all of them. Marco Rubio, he knows what Trump is. We have the tape of him on January 6th saying, he's turning us into a country like Cuba, like my family escaped, and all this. They know what they're doing. So I believe, we must, pull people's covers without apology. Like, I mean, they're going after like what they did to Tim Walz. They went after Tim Walz. He's a good man, a good, decent man who wants to serve, who served who served his community and was beloved by the people, his constituents. And it doesn't matter. We don't deserve good people in this country. They chase good people out of office like that. So unless there is some kind of moral, brain, spiritual awakening, but I don't see how it's going to happen until we get the message back. We have to get it back. But with like Chuck Schumer, you know what I mean? And it feels like uh, it's going to get worse, a lot worse before it gets better at this point. I don't know what people are thinking. I'm not trying to bring like, doom and gloom here, but I just, we do have a lot of work to do. And this is why I do my show too, to just a little add to the conversation, to like, some truth into the sphere here. So maybe somebody might encounter it instead of going down a Q hole or getting caught in Maggotville, where, they don't call them maggots for nothing, because what are maggots? They feed off the corpse. The Republican Party is a corpse. It's a rotting corpse, and it needs to go the way of the Whigs, man. If you ask me, but okay, I know I'm going on and on here. So I'm really like in a bad mood, like, to put it mildly, and I'm depressed really to see that what is happening to our country. It's embarrassing. It's shameful. It's disgraceful. It just makes me completely despondent about the promises of this country, that we have such immoral maggots in the halls of power, and we tried to stop them, and everywhere, Trump should be in jail. He should be in prison. He should have been in cuffs on January 7th, for God's sakes. And I mean, the immorality is just stunning and bottomless, frankly. So how? And I believe too, what they're doing is they're trying to set it up to not have elections, of course, because they know they'll get trounced.
I think one of the things that I like to do too, and is I separate myself from the parties in pretty distinctively. I know, Chris, you've mentioned this before too, in how you approach your thing is you're not a Democrat, you're not a Republican, you're an American. It's country over party. And I think we just have to drive it without considering what the party really is doing, because the party will follow us and not the other way around. The party has never been the vehicle for change. The people are. And once we I don't talk about politicians very much unless it's like, oh, hey, AOC just did something really good the other day and tore down JD Vance and some of this, then the shit that's been going on, or Jesse Waters, I think it was, and refused to go on an interview with him. And that's important. Like, doing these things and standing up is important, but I don't do it from a Democratic Party mindset. I do it from, I'm going to go, say, work with Senate America to try and propose legislation on small things that are one single item issues, like unmask law enforcement, unless it's strictly necessary, those types of issues, or require DHS and all law enforcement to, by default, wear a body cam. Because if you have to wear a body cam and it cannot be manipulated, those crimes are going to go down real quick. The activity that we just saw happen where Nicole Good was murdered on the street in Minneapolis would not have happened if a body cam was there. And if we separate ourselves from the party, we then make the party be for it or against it. And if they're for it, we can say, hey, look, the Democratic Party has a platform for safety, for removing the idea that a masked person, specifically a masked white man, could approach you and kidnap you. Like, that's my first thought, is if a group of masked men is coming at me with guns in a unmarked vehicle, that you can get lights for any vehicle that are blue and red. You're just not legally supposed to use them, but they don't care if you're a criminal. If somebody's coming up to me with masks on and a gun, they're trying to kidnap me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just before we came on air published a Substack post, and I will put it on Veterans Fighting Fascism's website, or Task Force Butler's website, about how to stay safe when you're planning to observe ICE from a vehicle. And cameras are crucially important. I know that a lot of people from like the OSINT space and security space have been telling people, like, if you're going to a protest, don't bring your cell phone. If you're not planning on breaking the law, you going to a protest with a cell phone does not matter. With when you're driving, you should absolutely have a phone with you, because you need your license and you need your license plate visible anyway. If they want to identify you, they're going to identify you, right? So that's first thing. Second thing is making sure that you have additional cameras. I have a So I do this professionally, so not everybody's going to have this. But if you're, tracking ice in your neighborhood, get yourself a modern, high quality dash camera. Get an attachment that faces to the rear.
Mhm.
These things connect to your phone and they upload to the cloud instantly. Wouldn't matter if a bullet went through this thing. The seconds leading up to that incident would all be in the cloud. And the reality is that ICE is going to keep killing people. ICE is going to keep killing observers, innocent people just driving down the street. So I think it's more and more important for the average American who is concerned about this type of stuff, who knows that this stuff is going to happen in their neighborhood, to start installing things like dash cams. Second is, if it is your plan to go out and observe ICE, do not do it in your car alone. If you are driving, you cannot responsibly or safely observe. If that car needs to move, you need to focus entirely on driving.
Mhm.
In the military, there's no single occupant vehicle. It doesn't exist because that is unsafe. The driver has one mission, and it's to move that vehicle from one position to another. The person next to them is in the military, in a Humvee, that is the truck commander. And they are the ones who are charged with observing, the ICE agents coming from different directions and everything that you're not going to see if you're a driver. They are the people who should be, using either radio or cell phone to communicate with other people, to call for help, to dial 911 when necessary. If you're being stopped by ICE, you can and should call 911 if you think that things are going to escalate. So for folks who want to understand more about this, if you go to my onoffense.substack.com, it's my last post. I will hopefully within a few days have exactly the same thing on Veterans Fighting Fascism's website or Task Force Butler's website. Folks need to have come to terms with the fact that if you are observing ICE, in the minds of some ICE officers, you are a target for murder. That they will view you as an existential threat. So don't do it alone. If you do it, read the guide, make sure that you've got all of the equipment that you need, that you've got all of the plan that you need to stay safe. These things might not have saved Miss Good, but it would, a dash cam would make it much easier to prosecute those who are involved in her murder. Right. So it is not just about keeping you safe. It's about keeping evidence safe. That automatic upload, whether it's from your phone or the dash cam to your phone or a GoPro to your phone, these things are essential. We cannot trust ICE to not manipulate data when after they commit a murder. I mean, we saw that ICE agent murder someone, and within 2.5 minutes, he was in a vehicle leaving the crime scene. That vehicle was part of the crime scene, right?
Right.
Violating all sorts of rules of evidentiary preservation, which he should have been trained on, right? So we need to assume that evidence will be destroyed if we are not making sure that it exists in an offsite location.
So I just want to, I thought that was a really great segment, Chris. I watched it right before we came on. I think it's important for people to understand that no amount of compliance, and I think the Black community and immigrant communities understand this, that no amount of compliance, no amount of keeping your hands visible or keeping your tone, soft will save you if they're really after you. So it might be a false sense of security that maybe Renee Good's murder will teach people that just because you're white, you're not safe. But I think it's important to know that and follow your advice, because if they want to harm you, they will harm you. but it's better to get it recorded.
Yeah, and also, as some have said in the chat too, is if you have a phone with biometrics, use your password instead of Face ID because they can just point your phone at your face and unlock it, or they can get you to put your finger on the fingerprint thing, but they cannot get you to reveal your password. So I've changed my phone for a long time now to just password access to get in. Once you're in your phone, you can use your biometrics if you want, but to unlock your phone itself, make sure it is always on password and nothing else.
And don't make it your birthday, people.
Yeah, but also like just put it on password because it's a simple way to legally prevent them from getting into your device where you have very little privacy in the US right now. So maintain what little privacy you have. That's super important.
Mm-hmm.
Totally agree.
Exactly.
I haven't been able to. The chat has been going by so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too that we've seen out of this, looping it back into our book too, is how the narrative is driven and how right after the event happened, Kristi Noem and everyone else, before any information came out, Stephen Miller, Donald Trump, JD Vance, everybody came out and said, this is a domestic terrorist, this is a leftist extremist, yada, yada, yada. All the
Not
same
only that,
talking
but
points.
how they died. How they died. I mean, this is how they do it. We are always caught on our back foot. I talked to Anat Shenker-Osorio yesterday about how do we counter this. But it's a hallmark of what they do is they know what they're going to say before it even happens.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear your thoughts from that discussion if you want here to do a little bit of summarize on that, because I think that makes a lot of that ties a lot in. But my thing is, I think we stopped them from creating a fake narrative this time, because immediately after it happened, so many investigative groups went out independently and just said, no, we are going to see what the truth is. We had people like Chris was saying in the New York Times doing it for their investigative team and footage analysis and their analysis team. Zev Shalev and I did an analysis on it the night that it happened. Zev spent a lot of time putting together different video angles and syncing them, and we went over it in depth. And we drove home immediately that this woman was murdered and it was not domestic terrorism and she was not a threat. And instead, the ICE agents were the threat and were the violence. And I think we have finally learned on the new media side and independent media side that we don't need permission to say the things that need to be said. We're just sort of saying them now. And I think that's important because we're flooding the zone with strong and right rather than strong and wrong.
Right.
I mean, there's still plenty of people. One of my still on Facebook friends is a veteran who is trans, who has tons of her followers are either active duty or veterans, and they were fully believing the doctored video. And so I think we can shoot for the words we use. We can try to do exactly what we have been doing, is getting it out to the widest possible audience. And the way we do that is by telling our friends and our friends telling their friends. It's the theory of change where you don't reach people directly on the other side. You reach the people on your side and they reach other people and they reach other people. And I think doing that is a really important way to do it.
Right. We
also talk about the fact that our leaders are not leading, and so we need to be the leaders, and then they will follow. Because, and I saw Ezra Levins talking to Wajahat Ali yesterday, basically saying, leaders aren't leading. This is our job. Nobody's going to save us but us. So here are the kinds of things that we can do and economic actions are high on the list of things that actually work.
Right. Right.
So
Well,
we're
I think that gives a sense of organizing. That if when for example with Jimmy Kimmel, when the people pushed back, and then of course he got his show back, but that's great, and we need to keep that kind of mindset, because it really is about organizing and being unified. I think otherwise we're done. That's why they continue to divide us. And you're saying like your friends are believing the lie.
not my
I
friends,
go,
but yeah.
yeah, your acquaintances or whatever, your friends, and on the I just went on the conservative Reddit page, which I check now and then to see what they're saying, and they're writing that she's a radical. She put herself, instead of doing, she should be home taking care of her kids. Instead, she was out there blocking, these patriotic ICE agents from doing their job, and she was out there, protecting criminals, and yeah, and because she's been radicalized. They don't think rationally. That's by design. This is their pawns in a big game. This is what they're writing, and that's because of our complete different sources of information. It's not like, when Wall said, "Is this our have you no decency moment?" No, it's not, because the days of Edward R. Murrow are long gone. The days of Walter Cronkite saying to the American people, "The Vietnam War is lost." That's over. There's no trust in our conversations anymore, and they've been doing this to us for years. So I don't know how we come back from that.
So with because they haven't had, they're doing a blitzkrieg of like executive orders, different things like that, trying to undermine the system from within. The one thing they have not been able to do is catalyze or create a catalyst event that shocks America into one direction or the other. And in the last couple minutes here, I want to get everyone's quick thoughts on that, of like what we think might be a catalyst moment, and has it happened yet? Chris, I want to start with you on this, on your thoughts on, have we hit a catalyst moment, or do we think we're approaching one? And what do we do to prepare for it?
We have this last few days, we've hit a moment where the videos of the murder became impossible for people to ignore, and there are some folks who've been subscribed to, Trump as maybe they're not wearing red hats and red shirts all the time, but people who voted for Trump and supported Trump generally are backing away because they see the gaslighting that is just crystal clear coming from the White House. I don't think that we will have a catalyzing event in terms of sparking mass protests until the weather warms up. I think I've talked about this before on this show. There is a protest season in the same way and for the same reasons that there's a fighting season in Afghanistan. People do not want to mobilize in the snow. Now, there are a ton of people in Minnesota in freezing temperatures mobilizing, but we are not going to see like the George Floyd style and size of protests until the weather warms and until schools are out. So we may start to see a rise in protests nationally in April, which is a little early for the protest season, but they really will kick off in May. That is when I expect there to be many more organized and spontaneous, very large protests. And with that will come more confrontations with ICE and other federal officials.
Good point. Thanks, Chris.
I think that is really
Stephanie?
important. I think one of the things that we've learned is, it's not, with this regime, we've always said, let's not give them an excuse to use violence. And we've now proved that they don't need an excuse. They'll make an excuse. They'll create one. So I think that I'm not saying let's use violence. Absolutely not. I think we need to have nonviolent noncompliance, as much friction as possible in all of our interactions, but being a little bit more open and aware to the idea that there's a way that we can control events so that the worst doesn't happen. And so what we can control are some of the things like, nonviolent noncompliance, like, I don't know whether a general strike will happen. I don't think we have that kind of history of really striking that way in a large scale. But, even the boycotts of specific platforms, especially since the tech billionaires are behind a lot of this, I think can be pretty effective, and it doesn't require warm weather. So one of the ones that is relevant to us here is Spotify, where they are advertising for ICE agents. So I think picking and choosing different kinds of actions where you can get some sort of critical mass without, I think you're right, Chris, it's not going to happen in very large numbers until later. And even then, I'm not sure that that's the catalyst that will change anything. Anat basically said you can't order up revolution on Amazon. Like you have to keep at it all the time. You can't just you can get anything from Amazon except a revolution. But I do think this is an inflection point. I think it's kind of a Rubicon of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
Tara, how about you?
I mean, what's the question?
Do you think have we reached a catalyst point yet, or a full catalyst yet? Or do you think we're approaching one, and
a catalyst?
How do you prepare for it? Like a changing event that's either going to push us into a violent solution or a non-violent solution?
Yeah, well, no matter what, we can't respond with violence. Like Stephanie said, there's no way we can defeat fascism because we're simply not. We don't have weapons. We don't need. It's not going to be a shooting war. We have to respond with nonviolence, and then that's just what history shows us. When a fascist regime will. When the democratic forces are pushing back against the fascist regime, it's done with the hearts and minds too, and that's what we saw in the Black Lives Matter movement, which is why the Republicans had to denigrate it and turn it into riots, because it wasn't just black people out there; it was all pigments, and then people were appalled at the murder of George Floyd, what they saw. So I don't know if this is an inflection moment, because I have said this numerous times. I said, this is it. When January 6th happened, I'm like, that's it. We're done with the baboon. Thank God. He's going to jail. And of course, yet again, then he was convicted of rape. Then he was convicted of 34 felonies. Then, and because of our silos of information, we had two different interpretations of event. They do think that Trump is a victim of the deep state on the right-wing outlets that are funded by the Kremlin and all that. So I don't think this is an inflection point, because I think that it's going to wake people up. It's just going to be another drop in the bucket that might bring more people into into the protesting and whatnot, but because we don't have a unified platform of information, it's not going to be an inflection point. It's just another fissure of disunity for the maggots to exploit, like Henry Wallace warned us about. So that's what they do, to exploit and cultivate. That's all they ever do, is throw salt in the wounds. So yeah.
And so we're going to put going to put sand in their gears, because every small
That's what we have
action
to do.
matters and everything that we do matters. So I don't know if we're at an inflection point yet. I think this is a catalyzing event that happened because a lot of people responded and woke up and saw it, and it hit a white person. And in
Yes.
America, things really don't change until white people are impacted, unfortunately. And so
Right.
we can bring something from this woman's death. We can learn something, and we can use the catalyst of her death, because it's awful. It's horrific. We should all be upset that she died this way. We should all be upset that everyone else is also facing this type of harassment, years and years and years in the making, and others have been living this life forever, and we just need to change it. We can use this as a catalyst event for good. We don't have to wait for My idea is maybe we don't wait for them to give us a catalyst event, is we make our own, because we have to go on offense non-violently, and peacefully and through patriotic means. But it has to be organized, and I think we're doing that. I think we're finally getting to that point, of the organization level, and I think we'll see. Unfortunately, is it will get a little bit worse before it gets better, or it could get a lot worse before it gets better. But we continue to do what we're doing so that it does get better.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to
Yeah.
be for something through the entire process and continue to function as though we want to live in a democracy, which means put out legislation, continue what we're doing, our podcasts. And to finish that, we'll sell ourselves real quick, because it's at the top of the hour and I want to make sure everybody gets off, and go to their next things. So Chris, I'll start with you. Is go support Chris at On Offense, and Veterans Fighting Fascism and Task Force Butler, and all of the things that he's doing, and the Find Out podcast, and the work that he's doing there. He's doing incredible stuff. He is going on offense, and giving you tools to keep yourself safe while you're doing it. Chris, sell yourself.
Thanks. Well, I think you did a pretty good job already, Nick,
Yeah.
so I'll keep it short. The last episode of On Offense that I published, I had recorded before Christmas, and it was with historian and journalist Jonathan M. Katz. He was the AP bureau chief in Haiti, has a lot of familiarity with the Caribbean. He also wrote the book Over My Shoulder, Gangsters of Capitalism, about Smedley Butler. Smedley Butler is the general who fascists in the 1930s tried to recruit into running a coup, getting veterans who were pissed off after World War I and not getting the bonus that they were promised during the Great Depression when it mattered. And he basically ratted them out. Now, unfortunately, in that history that has been forgotten by most Americans, or never learned by most Americans, no one was ever held accountable. So it's a long episode. We talk about how what is going on overseas in the Caribbean is directly connected to the violence that we're seeing from the administration on the streets of the United States. So if you're interested, follow On Offense on Substack. Check out the Valor Media Network on YouTube. We're going to be back on a regular schedule, and then at the holidays are over, new episode every Wednesday. And thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. As always, I appreciate it. And Steph, how about you, my friend? Doing a lot of really good interviews. I know I missed yours yesterday, and I'm going to listen to it. But I sell yourself, my friend. You do some amazing work.
Oh, thank you. So I have Freedom Over Fascism, and I talk to people who can help us understand the context and how to act in ways that will bring back freedom. Where I just talked to Anat Shenker-Osorio yesterday, and right before this, I got both the video and the audio up. So you can find that there. She talks a lot about only the many can defeat the money. And that this is a regime of the bullies for the billionaires. And so she's got some language, but she's also got some like realistic things that we can be thinking about as we move forward. And next week on Tuesday, I'm talking to a woman who used to be evangelical, white Christian nationalist, and deconstructed from that. And now she is organizing ex-evangelicals against or for freedom. And I'm also going to be talking to a local official in Colorado who is like a city attorney and talking about what local and state governments can do to protect our freedom. So that's freedomoverfascism.us. If you can possibly subscribe with a paid subscription, I'd really appreciate it. But if not, free is great, and all my content is free.
Appreciate it, Steph. Thanks so much. I look forward to watching that interview here later today. And Tara Devlin. Tara, how about yourself, my friend?
Hey guys, thank you for all your support. Thank you for always having me on the show, and everyone else, great work. You're amazing. And one thing I do want to say about Smedley Butler, I'm glad Chris brought it up, that it was, he did go to the Congress, but it kind of goes along with what we were saying, that the newspapers of the time vilified him. This is why no one ever went to jail about this. William Randolph Hearst, the big robber baron, newspaper baron, reported on it as if Butler was a kook, and this was a giant hoax that he made up. If that doesn't sound familiar for today, I don't know what doesn't. So yeah, they tried to overthrow FDR. It was called The Business Plot. You just Google it. They should make a movie about it, really. So. But yeah, if you can, please subscribe to my Substack. That would be great. And on tonight, I do a show on youtube.com/C for channel/Tarabuster, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And Hal Sparks is joining me tonight. We're going to have a great conversation, no doubt. And yeah, so please hang out with us. We have a lot of fun too in the chat room. So. Thank you. And yeah, subscribe to my Substack because I need to get those numbers up, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Tara. I appreciate you, and thanks for coming on as always with us. And then finally, come support me at Sick of This Shit Publications. I'll keep mine short. I'm doing a lot of masculinity work, new masculinity, mental health as well. Do chronic illness discussions and community building. So come join me there. Taking a little bit of different approach. We also have a new podcast that's on there called Time for Life with my friends Beth Cruz and Soso, who are taking a little bit of break from the politics and giving you some more culture and things to look forward to and bring joy to your day. And so I think that's going to be a nice change of pace for people. And it's also where I'm building out and helping work on build out the new manosphere. So come support me there as I do a lot of new discussions around intelligent masculinity and scholar warrior mentalities. You'll see Chris be coming on for one of the episodes here upcoming soon too. And then finally, support the Banner and Backbone Media. We're a small independent media network trying to build ourselves up so that we can continue hosting shows like this, gain additional hosts and subscribers and friends that are in all across the pro-democracy area, so we can build a network of collaborators and community that does what the right wing has done for so long so well, is drive narratives and drive the truth and do it through individuals and personalities that are people and authentic. So help us reclaim integrity, service, and ethics at Banner and Backbone. So thank you guys. Thank you all for being here with us. Thank you everyone in the audiences on YouTube, Substack, Twitch, Facebook, LinkedIn, I think maybe, wherever we are streaming today. Thank you all for being here with us. If you're on Substack, hit the subscribe button in the top left corner. And we will see you all next week for our continued discussion into Ruth Ben-Ghiat's Strongmen on Banner and Backbone's Anti-Fascist Book Club. Thanks, everyone. Have a great Friday.
Have a good one.